And we are right at time, so welcome everyone to our February 2023 community call. Thanks for being here. As always, feel free to use the chat to ask questions throughout, and then we also have a discussion in the PowerShell repo that we're collecting topics in. I can make sure that gets into the chat here. We have a pretty packed agenda today, a number of items from the team, partners, and community demos. So Danny, are you on the call if you want to get started with OpenSSH updates? Danny here?
I am, if my mute button would unfreeze.
Oh,
there
perfect.
We go.
Wonderful.
All right. Hi, folks. So some quick updates on OpenSSH. We are working on our 9.2 beta release for GitHub that is currently in progress. We suspect it should go out sometime within the next few weeks. Additionally, there is I say a lot of conversation around the mark of the web update that we included in 9.1. We have modified and reverted some of that behavior, so the mark of the web changes now do not take an impact on file uploads, and so that's more consistent with SCP's file behavior. Yeah, I think those are the two big updates for 9.2. And I think I'll have more OpenSSH content next month as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny. Next, we had some updates on logging from Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just real quick update. Actually, it's just really an FYI. I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but PowerShell under Windows only platform, will run in a safe mode or a lockdown mode when the Windows Defender application control, it's a whitelisting application control system on Windows, when that's being enforced. PowerShell will run in like a lockdown or a safe mode, and a big part of that mode is running untrusted scripts and constrained language. In any case, the Windows Defender application control can also run in what's called an audit mode, in which case none of the lockdown restrictions apply, but any restrictions that would apply get logged, so that you can basically kind of find out whether your applications and scripts and modules were run. So anyway, what we're doing in PowerShell is we are looking to add some logging at the PowerShell side, so that when PowerShell is running in safe mode and the policy is in audit mode, not enforce mode, you will get logging information to say that, oh, this restriction would have applied if you were running the policy in enforcement mode. And the whole point of this is just make it easier to get existing scripts and modules to run in this safe mode. But so that's really all I wanted to mention there. If you have any questions, feel free to ping me.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Paul, for the update. Next up, we have Michael talking about Install-PowerShell.
Hi, I put a link in the chat to the RFC, but the committee, the maintainers have agreed to accept the RFC, and you'll find it in the draft accepted folder. The notion behind this, so we've been looking up for a long time at, should we just ship PowerShell 7 in Windows? And you'll see more details in the RFC itself, but after the investigation, we basically decided that rather than trying to complete that work effort, instead it might make more sense to figure out all the ways that we can be we can be agile and figure out how to make it very simple to install PowerShell 7 in Windows. And after investigating that, our first choice would be to just use Winget, but as we looked across all the different versions or types, I guess you could say, of Windows, there are places where Winget isn't available yet. And so what we're thinking is to just have a simple install-PowerShell script solution that we would put everywhere we can, basically, in every version of Windows that we can, so that whenever you load Windows, you just run install-PowerShell and you would get PowerShell 7 there. So we're definitely looking for, I mean, this is a request for comments, so we are definitely looking for feedback, looking for edge cases we might not have thought about yet, and helping us to make it easy for everyone to adopt PowerShell 7 wherever they're at. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, be sure to check out that RFC and give us some feedback. Next up, we have Andy talking about the VS Code PowerShell previews with consistent references, aka the symbols rewrite.
Hey, good morning. So it's February and we've got another preview release out. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen shared over here just to demonstrate it real quick. 1 second, got to add the other computer. And right as I try, it disappears. We went through and finished out our consistent references project, which we had started tracking quite a while ago. Honestly, I think around when I joined, like 2021. Sydney and I had made a big old project of all the issues that we knew existed with references. Now, this kind of sat on the back burner for a little bit until we had some amazing work come from a community member.
Wait, is he coming back? Okay.
I clicked the wrong button and I didn't add device. I transferred device. I'm so sorry.
You should really move the leave button further away from the share button.
Seriously, I'm going to click don't use audio this time. Okay, I think we're about ready here. So we had a community member, Frode, come through and give us an amazing pull request that like added support for classes, like class methods and all of that in visual in our extension. And then this sat on the back burner late last year because we just had a lot of other stuff going on. And come January or so, I decided, hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at that pull request. And it turned out that I couldn't just merge it as it was at the time because we also had other great work done by Patrick to speed up the references. And so we had these two totally different ways of handling symbols in VS Code, in the extension at the time. And I spent latter half of January, early half of February, kind of reconciling all of them. We got rid of all of the different visitors that we had. We have a single visitor that operates essentially when the file is open, and it caches all of the symbols, and it has one visitor that goes through all the different things that we can in the AST to build up different symbol types. And then not only are they cached, later when we look up symbols, we actually just use the cache to like find symbol at position. So we've managed to bring the performance enhancements that Patrick had initiated for code lenses and applied it to all things that affect symbols, such as code lens, go to definition, find symbol in workspace, find symbol in document, and also like the outline view over here. So between doing that, spending some time kind of just cleaning all of this up, once I removed like all that duplicate code where we just had literally it was another like dozen implementations of the AST visitor doing different things very similarly, and we have one now. I was able to get Frode's request in. We were able to go back to that project. We closed out most of the stuff just in the rewrite. And then earlier this week, I pushed out a new preview that essentially addressed everything else, including multi-root workspace support for symbols. I think that was a special request of Justin. So now go ahead and install the preview, pull up any sort of PowerShell thing, and do something like this. Discord connection. What is this? Hey, look at the outline view over here. You actually have the PowerShell class showing up. You've got your methods showing up here. You can do something like, oh, this. Well, I'm not sure that one's going to work. Log debug is. Give me a good example here. Give me one that actually exists in the class. Receive job. Okay, there we go. So a method that's in use on this $this, and you want the definition of it, that actually works. And for the most part, thanks to some tricky logic, some tricky guessing logic that we've programmed in, go to definition actually works throughout all the different symbols, including if it's like a member invocation or a property. It is not as smart as you might think it could be. Certainly, like if we had a proper semantic model, we could say, oh, $this is actually this class, and like go look up the property on it. We sort of skipped past that and said we don't have that information, but we can just bucket all the overloads and all the symbols together. And for the most part, like the 90% use case, go to definition will work. And if there's multiple options, like you have a method with multiple overloads and you click go to definition, you get a little set of, oh, these are the possible definitions that we think it is. So a lot of the open issues that we had were initially, we were like, we can't do this perfectly, so it's just not done at all. We were like, I kind of decided, nope, we did it so much better than it was. It's actually now mostly available. And yeah, give it a try. I want to roll this most recent preview release to stable sometime this week, or actually probably next week. But try out all the symbols, please. If you have a giant repository full of PowerShell scripts, I really, really, really would like you to do take that and run, what is it? Workspace symbol. My presenter view is covering my command palette. There we go. Okay, go away command palette. Do that, and then you type like star right here, and you get your all your workspace symbols. This is actually pretty fast now. This is on Poshbot. Like you can look at all the classes. And I tried this on a large repository that I can't remember the name of now, and it was so fast that I closed out the issue that said, hey, we need to implement like a little progress bar. It's like, no, as far as I could tell, but I would like to be corrected on that. So if you have a giant repository full of PowerShell scripts, performance test it for me and let me know. But so far as I can find, it's as fast as I think it can be. So yeah, that's that. Thanks for sitting through my struggles getting the screen share working.
Thanks so much, Andy, for all of that. I noticed, Ryan, I think you have your hand up. Did you have a question about this?
Yeah, we can't see anything.
Can't see
I'm
anything.
able to see it. So Ryan, typically that you may have to leave and join. I think it may be an individual issue.
I'm about to click
folks,
stop sharing, so sorry,
yeah, can
Ryan.
other folks at least confirm? Okay, so some other folks on the chat are able to say that they were able to watch.
And I will go drop a link to the preview extension as usual in the chat here, as well as with our changelog, but it has all been around mostly the symbol work.
Oh, leave and join.
Alrighty. Thanks so much again, Andy. Next up, we have Damien with a few Azure PowerShell updates.
Yes, thank you, Sydney. So the first update I wanted to mention is Azure RM. So for those who are still using Azure RM modules, or those who are working with customers that are still using Azure RM modules, I just wanted to make a reminder that they are going out of support next year, February 2024. We've announced it 2 years ago. We don't have any plans to extend the deadline at this point. So if that is not in your plans to do any migration, please consider doing that as soon as possible. And I'm going to put the link here in the chat about how you can migrate to AZ, which is the newer generation of those commands. Among the improvements, we have better security, token cache encryption, and also prevention of man-in-the-middle type of attack between those two environments. The change was around the libraries, the authentication libraries that are under the cover. They don't change the authentication, the way you authenticate, but they have a massive change here. So that was the first thing I wanted to remind everyone about. The other one, and I don't see if there are any questions. I don't see any question on this, so I may just move to the next topic, which is sharing a bit the work we've done on Azure CLI and PowerShell. One of the #1 asks we had from Azure CLI was to improve the usability of Azure CLI in PowerShell. And I'm going to share my screen here to show what we have done on this front. I hope everyone can see my screen right now, or at least my my prompt.
I can see it.
Awesome. So it's going to be a quick demo. I'm going to type AZ and then S. And I know you cannot see my keyboard, but believe me, trust what I'm saying. I'm just going to type tab. And it takes a bit of time. This is work in progress, but we have currently a prototype or a preview of autocompleters for Azure CLI on PowerShell. So in that case, you can cycle through all the different options starting with S, and then, oops, I'm missing some commands, obviously. And then you can do tab again, and it will go through all the potential parameters or commands that are attached to that. In that case, that would be storage. So you can go to storage and looking for account. I think I passed it here. It is. space, and then I can go again through the next set of commands. So we believe this is, well, it was an ask that we've received, and it was number one ask about Azure CLI on PowerShell. That's coming. We're still working on those improvements. As you see, performance is not really at the level we would like it to be, but yeah, that's coming soon.
Awesome. That's so cool to see, Damien. And I saw a lot of hearts and thumbs up come up as you were demoing that. Next up, we have Winget PowerShell update from Demetrius. If
He was
he's
here
here,
earlier.
did we
Yeah,
miss
he was
him?
typing in the chat. We can, if he's not available right now, we can put him towards the end.
Well, yeah, we can come back to that. If you're ready, Sean, we can go ahead with the docs update.
All right. Give me a second here. Share my screen. So as always, I want to point out in our community section, we have a what's new in docs. So each month this gets updated with the things that we've added in the previous month. I think I covered this last month. We added a new article about data files. So this talks about the 3 different uses of PSD1 files and so on. The new items this month that I wanted to highlight is put the links in the chat. We've got a new section here under our scripting and development for security considerations, and a new article about preventing script injection attacks. So it explains what an injection attack is, example of vulnerable code, ways to guard against it, and talks about this module from Lee Holmes called Injection Hunter that adds script analyzer rules that checks for these possible injection attacks. So this is just one example in this article. Injection Hunter has several different things that it looks for. We may be adding more content around Injection Hunter in the future, but just wanted to point this out. And then we also did a major update to the About PowerShell config article, which documents the PowerShell config JSON file. So now we have one article that lists all of the possible keys that can be in the JSON file and what they're used for. And it links off to other topics where we go into more detail about how to use this. But this was a major rewrite that I wanted to highlight. And that's it for docs updates.
Awesome. Thanks for the doc updates. Seeing lots of hearts and thumbs up for these as well. Next up, we have Mike with a quick community update.
Hey, everyone. I'll be brief today. I just wanted to highlight the upcoming PowerShell Summit coming up in the end of April, and then in June will be PSConf EU. I don't want to make this too much of a sales pitch, but if you are interested, I just pasted most of the information in the chat. It's going to be a great conference as always. If you've never attended, essentially everybody that you know in the community, most of the MVPs will be there. The PowerShell team will be there in force. If you'd like to learn what's going on in the PowerShell community and what cool things are happening, PowerShell Summit is really an excellent way to do that. It's 4 days of fantastic demos and getting to hang out with a bunch of great people in the community and in the field of PowerShell. And I think most of the people on this call probably are familiar with the PowerShell Summit in some way, shape, or form. But if you're considering buying tickets, now is the time. We sell out every year. The same will happen this year. It's capped at about 400 people, so it's not an overly large event. So you get to meet a lot of people and spend a lot of time with them. So if you'd like to know more, please check out the PowerShell Summit website. You can always reach out to me. I'd be happy to give more information on it. And last but not least, I just want to give a quick shout out to Mr. Sean Wheeler. Sean's been coming to my user group probably for 8 months straight now. Without asking, he just comes and hangs out. He's always a great technical resource for us. He was hanging out with us last night as well. And we just really appreciate Sean's willingness to come and share and be part of the community. So thank you, Sean, for everything you're sharing with us.
My pleasure.
It's been fantastic having you there. But as far as Summit goes, that's all I wanted to share. Obviously, the same exists for PSConf EU coming up in June. Both are fantastic events, and but you need to get tickets early. They do sell out. And so if you're considering going, now is the time to really make sure that happens.
And
Awesome,
this is Justin.
thanks.
Also, Gail noted in the notes. Also, there's PS Day UK coming up.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Justin.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I'm really looking forward to PowerShell Summit this year, and luckily it's convenient for the PowerShell team, so most of us will get to attend this year.
Yeah, I just breezed through the sessions, and there's 70 sessions this year, 50 speakers.
Oh, wow.
So it's a ton of content. It's usually an overload of content, but it's really fantastic. And so I hope people will get in on it early.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mike. And yeah, as Justin mentioned, looks like PS Day UK is also coming up as another opportunity to connect with community folks. And with that, we can jump into some of our community demos. First up, we have the directory predictor from Justin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Let me just share the screen.
Looks good.
Yeah. Okay, so my name's Justin, and I made a directory predictor. It is a PowerShell PS subsystem command predictor plugin binary module for PS readline. And you can check it out at the GitHub repo with that link. So what does it do? It searches file names from the command line arguments that you put in. So if you look, I think you can see my cursor, hopefully. I don't know if you can. Yeah, okay. So you can see that you have a command LL, and then you start typing something, and it matches the file names to that string, and it gives you a list of them down here. You can see the little directory notification thing, and you can just use it like regular PS readline history stuff. So the motivation for this was to improve my personal coding workflow, because I don't want to always know the file names. I don't know the file names, and I don't want to remember file names that I do know, but I do want to be quick working with the files when I'm doing stuff in PowerShell. So the first thing I tried as an end user of PowerShell was to go to the experts in the PowerShell community Discord, and two main issues arose from those experts where they told me it's not very possible in PS readline with the standard options, and a PSM module may have performance concerns with looking up the directory and everything like that. So as a programmer, I went and found all the dirty laundry in the PowerShell GitHub repo, and then finally found the nice cool.com collected Microsoft docs from Sean that led me to find the right tech, which was the PS subsystem plugin model, which is a experimental feature currently, and its purpose is to reduce the PowerShell install size with module functionality. The only subsystem available right now, I think, is the command predictor. And this all works together with PS readline. So there's a really nice chart from the Microsoft docs again. So directory predictor is this little predictor module. It registers into the subsystem, and then the PowerShell engine and PS readline take that all together so that you can use it in PowerShell. So let's look at the code for those that are maybe interested in making one themselves. The first thing you need to do is to initialize or register your class as a subsystem. And this is all coming out of the system.management automation namespace. The next thing after that is your commandlets, basic commandlet setup for a module. The only unique thing is there was no documentation for how PSR readline wanted you to share state or options, whatever. So I just did what they did with their singleton pattern. And then the next thing you need to do is be careful about syncing your state with the user state and not having multiple threads accessing the run space because it can't handle that. And the only thing we're really syncing for this module is the current path or working directory that the user is in their shell. And then we can get to the actual code. So typical PS commandlet, and it interfaces with the command predictor. And then basic boilerplate code to string it all together. And then we get into the magic method, which is get suggestion. We have a prediction client and a prediction context. We get the token and the input of the string or the args that the user is putting in. We do some validation with it, whatever behavior you're wanting to get from it. And in this huge block of code, it's just setting up and getting our options ready to go for the final call into the directory files to get the names. Oh, that's this line right here. And then after all of that, we put into a list and return it back. And it's important to remember that all of this is running on a per character basis. So if you type really fast, it's going to be more intensive. And then if that was all confusing, we can go to a demo to show it off. So if I first show you the files, I can have my command. And notice nothing is happening with the directory predictor yet because I haven't typed anything. I have it made so that there's no white space file searching, because that can be a performance nightmare. But as soon as I type L, you can see that I get the directory lookup properly. If I go to run the Lua script, nothing happens because I don't have file extensions in my script that I run. So in a commandlet, I can hide those extensions. I can do it again, and now it'll work. A really good use case that I found is if you download something from the internet and you just want to run it straight away without ever checking what it is, but you don't know the name of the solution file. You normally know that the solution file is named after the project, so you can just type that in and it's there ready to go for you. And then if we go look at the profile, you can import the module as usual. You need PS readline as well. PS readline options, whatever you want. And then the line that you need is this enable experimental feature line for PS subsystem plugin model. And then here are some of the commandlet options for the directory predictor itself. I've shown you the extensions. Results limit is 1 to 10. And then you can put in commands to ignore. So if I show that off right now, go back to the thing, reload the profile. And if I type the old command, it still works. But if I just do ly something, nothing's showing up. So that's good if you have SSH or CD or a command you don't want to be used. And another thing, it does respect flags, so you can do stuff like that as well. And yeah, so the roadmap is just to add more commandlet options. So like a folder search toggle, case sensitivities, search or filter patterns. And as you may have noticed, I'm not actually predicting anything. So hopefully I can start predicting the best file names if there's multiple file names that have the same name, or change the order. Instead of alphabetical, it can be based on time or how much you use a file. And of course, I'm open to any community suggestions for whatever use case people might have. And then there are some limitations currently with PS readline. Ordering and configuring multiple predictors together is not ideal. So you may have seen this in here. So the first thing is you're limited to 10 results. As far as I know, I can't get this to be more than 10, even though I have all this screen space. The other thing is when I'm searching a file name, there will be duplicate results between history and directory. I could turn history off, but it would be nice if multiple could be like a collapsible collection or something. And there's no way for these to intermingle, like this directory input can't be right under this history one. So there are some limitations and quirks with that. And then the other thing is that it is experimental. PS subsystem failed to make it out of experimental when some other experimental stuff did make it out. And because it's experimental, there can be breaking changes. And that's it.
Thank you. I want to clarify a couple of things. That was a great demo, by the way. So the experimental nature of the PS subsystem, it does not require you to enable it. It is actually enabled even if you disable it because it's a passive feature. The purpose of the experimental feature flag is really to advertise that, like as you mentioned, as we get more people developing against it and we get feedback, we could make changes. And because it's experimental, they're not technically a breaking change, right? So that's one thing. The other thing I want to mention, you brought up some good feedback on PS readline presentation, and Dumbo has been actually working on some of those improvements. So I don't think we're going to show any of that today, but maybe next month. That will address specifically some things you brought up. So not everything, but some of the stuff.
That's good. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome demo. Very cool. Thank you so much, Justin. We can keep rolling with community demos. Is Adam here?
Don't see
Did Adam Driscoll
him.
join?
And I pinged him on Twitter, but he didn't respond. So we can probably let's skip him for now if he shows up later. Otherwise, we'll
Okay,
move him out.
sounds good. Then, Doug, if you're ready, we can see Chat GPT in PowerShell.
Yep. So should see my screen.
Yes.
Looks great.
So I'm gonna go through just a couple of slides and then a bunch of demos. And if I go too long, I didn't really time this, and I pared this down from one of my deep dives. So my name's Doug Fink, MVP, and going to talk about OpenAI, GPT, ChatGPT. So I guess last year around after build, I saw something come out of them. They were showing a Python program that actually connected into GPT, their REST APIs, and they actually enabled PowerShell with it, but they did it all through connecting to Python. So I said, all right, let me build it so I can do it all native PowerShell. And then I got it working, and I did some stuff. And the first person I contacted was Steve Lee, and Steve said, "Oh, I already made mine public." I was like, "Oh, son of a." Anyway, so it was all good. He did some really cool pieces, and then I've just been enamored with what this thing can do, and started building more pieces. So I will be doing this presentation and going in a much deeper dive to about an hour plus this Saturday. So if you want to join, you can get on my meetup, and I'll show some stuff at the end of this where you can get that link. So basically, embrace the power. AI is an emerging skill. I don't know if most people know the name Andre Karpathy. He used to work at OpenAI as a director. Then he worked at Tesla as a director of AI. And now this past week, he rejoined OpenAI to take this thing to the next level. One of his tweets last week was, "The hottest new programming language is English." And don't know if I'll be able to demo that so well, but it's looking more and more to be an interesting point of view. Check him out he's a great follow on Twitter. He's got his YouTube channel. He does some really amazing deep dives on all these transformer models. I don't know the mathematics. I'm not a data scientist, but he makes it really accessible. Big note, don't trust anything that comes out of ChatGPT or any of these things. It will make stuff up. If you ask it a question, it can't figure it out. It does something what they call hallucinates, and it will start making up commandlet names. It'll start doing all kinds of weird things. So you're responsible for ensuring the quality and reliability of your code. And at this point, this is something to pursue, in my opinion. It's important to understand how to build up this capability. And a lot of people say AI is going to replace us. My graphic there, AI will not replace you. I believe a person who using AI will be able to replace you. They'll be able to move that much more quickly. So I'm going to show a couple of pieces: ChatGPT, OpenAI Playground, PowerShell plus GPT, my module, and GitHub Copilot, maybe a little piece, a little bit if I have time. So ChatGPT is free. The Playground, you have to buy. They give you an $18 credit, and it's a 3-month limit expiration date on it. So if you don't use the $18 in 3 months, that'll be the end of that. You drop a credit card in, you can put limits on it, and you can go back and play. You also need that to work with the PowerShell AI piece. I use the AI key that you get from that to work with the PowerShell piece, and GitHub Copilot is also a paid service. So let's go to ChatGPT. So the other day I actually bought GPT Plus. It was worth $21.78. That's what it costs per month going forward. And let me just bring up my other screen. And what's good about this is, so I don't know how many people have seen this. I'm just going to start communicating or having a conversation. And can everybody see the screen? It looks good. All right.
Yep.
Yes.
So if I need to make fonts bigger, let me know. So here I'm going to say use PowerShell to list even numbers from 1 to 10. So this is just straight out of the box, and it comes back and it gives me a piece of code. I can copy this. I can run this at the command line, which again, don't trust everything that you see. So it gives me some good working code. That's not always going to be the case. It gives me an explanation, and it even shows what I should expect when it runs. Now, because I'm it's in context, it remembers the conversation, I can say something like now odd numbers. I don't have to tell it what it was or that it was PowerShell. It'll use that from the conversation that we've had. And here it tells me, yep, I'll list odd numbers from 1 to 10. And Up here, we're saying equals 0. Here, we're saying not equal 0. So this is some of the type of interaction you can have straight in the GPT window, the Chat GPT window. What's really cool is a lot of people have talked about their experiences where they want to learn how to do Rust. They don't know how to do Rust. They sit with Chat GPT. They ask questions. They copy paste code. They're off and running. And they've actually been able to build some pretty non-trivial programs. And these are some of the experts out there in the field. So that's Chat GPT. Now, the interesting thing is, when we go back and look at Chat GPT, the Playground, the PowerShell module, and the GitHub Copilot, they all use the same OpenAI models. So there's a bunch of models that sit in the back end, but they all interact a little differently based on the prompt that you do. But again, so if you're working in Chat GPT, it's going to be a little bit different output than the others, but you can get a close approximation depending on the prompts. So you can actually try things out in one and then use the same prompts that you do in the other environments. So let's go to, excuse me. So here I have a, I'm going to just do a git status. So I have a bunch of files that I haven't checked in. They're not tracked. And I'm going to show you one of the functions in the AI, PowerShell AI module is called AI. And I'm going to say git status. I'm going to pipe it to AI. It's going to pipe it into the PowerShell function. And I'm going to give it a prompt. Write me a detailed commit message for these changes. So it takes that git status, sends it off to ChatGPT, and it actually came up with a git commit message that I liked. Excuse me. So this can get as complicated as you want. If you want to write a prompt, write me a detailed commit message for just untracked or these things or whatnot, you can get this GPT to really communicate and spit you back some really cool pieces. So I'm going to stop with the command line piece. Let's pop over to Playground. One of the things I like to do here, so for example, I have up here, I copied some text off of the Web Telescope page, and just a short thing. You can copy as much as you like. You do have a limit of about 4,000 to 8,000 tokens. I always forget which one it is. And at the end, I'm saying, okay, I don't know enough about, I don't have enough degrees to understand all this technical stuff. And I can say, summarize this for an 8-year-old. And it will go and will start to give me a much more simplistic or a simplified version of what's going on. That's something I can take in. Now, you can drop emails in here. You can drop any kind of web page. You can drop copy paste stuff from PDFs, and it will do all kinds of cool things. You can put here whatever. So here's a summarize for an 8-year-old. You can do things like TL:\dr. It'll do similar things. You can ask it for just extract out all the technical pieces that you want to see, so on and so forth. So moving on. Oh yeah, one more piece I'll show. The other piece I like to do with this. So I can do some text and I can do some translations. Hi, my name is Doug Fink. Thank you for your interest. I'm excited to share this with you. And I want to translate that. That is how important. Also, let's try it again. Excellent demo. Let's see if I can do it here. So it will now translate this to Korean. And of course, Playground is not being cooperative, but you can also come along and say things like German, Spanish, and if the Playground is not overloaded. So for some reason, it's not taking typically it'll take the entire piece and translate. Here's the German and here's the Spanish, but it'll actually translate all pieces. I'm not sure why that's not working. So let's go back to the command line a little bit more. One of the things that's kind of cool about doing it at the command line, I just have a couple of simple, so I can enable the shortcut key, and I can do things like, what is my IP? And I can hit set up to do Control G. So right here in line, now this is not connected to my ChatGPT Plus. Anyway, so that may or may not be what you want, but it comes back and it inlines it. And if I wanted to press enter here, I can actually execute this. And this will actually work. So whatever kind of PowerShell you want to type in there, you can hit the #, type in your what you want, See if this one works today. Control G. Create a PowerShell hash table where the key is country and the value is city. So it takes those cities and it finds what country's in. That's workable PowerShell. And I can then type in hash table and I have my information. So if you like to work this way, so I find using this rather than looking up things on Stack Overflow or Google quite interesting, and I find it to be a lot of fun. How's my time? A couple more I can do?
I think a few more is good.
Okay, so let's take a look at, so that's using the key, the shortcut key. Let's use another one. I can say, go up and give me a list of planets, only names is JSON. That was pretty quick. And then we'll do 3 calls to it. I'm going to say, one thing that the AI does, you can actually take the output from something else, or like another AI command. You can then pipe it into another AI command. And here I'm going to do it 3 times. Get the list of planets in JSON. Going to then send that JSON up and say convert to XML. And then the last one is I'm going to take that XML and say convert to PowerShell. So this is a bit of a contrived example, but this is the type of thing you can sit and do. You don't have to just do PowerShell commands. You can do all kinds of different things. You could do the, too long didn't read type thing. You can read files and type it into here. So let's see if this actually responds, which it should. Okay, so there you have it. It actually took the JSON, converted to XML, set that to a variable, and then shows that we can accelerates it, which is kind of interesting that it was the accelerator, I thought, and then we can actually get the results. Now, this is just kind of giving you a sense of what kind of prompts you can build and what you can try to play around with. Another piece I have is something called Copilot command line. So what that does, it's similar to Control G. So use PowerShell, list files starting with test in this directory. So what this does, it goes up, gets the makes the request to GPT, get back the results, and I will then print out the question and list the number of lines of code that you have so you can actually view it. It gives you a confirmation if you want to run it or not. If you press enter, it doesn't run it. This one's kind of cool. Using PowerShell regex, just give me the code, split user from domain of email address with the match. And I give it an example, demo.user. So GPT goes up, took that. This is what they call a one-shot prompt, because I'm giving it an actual example. And it sets up my email to the example I did, does a regex with groups, grabs the subscripts 1 and 2. And if I run this, simple, it's done. If I wanted to, I can actually grab this, put this into a file, and I'm ready to go. So let's see what else we have. So I wanted to show Copilot. So Copilot also works off of the same models that we've seen so far: ChatGPT window, the playground, and the PowerShell piece. So if you come inside, if you have it installed, you can come into a PowerShell file. This is the PowerShell file, and I'm just going to write a write a function named fizzbuzz that prints the numbers from 1 to 16. I'm going to give it a little bit of a kick, and that gray is what GitHub Copilot is suggesting. If I hit tab, it accepts it. So that looks pretty good. So it actually just generates, even though it's a common, fizzbuzz is pretty common as an algorithm for questions on interviews. It's a workable piece. Comes back. The fizzbuzz, even 15 is getting calculated correctly. So I had one more demo on the Copilot, unless we're over time.
Go ahead, if it's not too long.
Shouldn't be too long. So one of the other things that GitHub Copilot does really well, and it also speaks to, the playground ChatGPT that you can do the same things in, which is interesting and cool, is I go up top and I make a comment, write boilerplate for a pester test for a function called getSets. So I'm going to come in here and say describe. And okay, so that's a good little start for me if I'm brand new to PowerShell or testing, or I'm an intermediate. That might be pretty useful. But what I really like about this is I'm going to pretend that I'm going to grab some another piece, and put it in a comment block. This is what my data is going to look like if I did a get sales call. And what's cool is I'm going to come down and say dollar result, and the suggestion back from GitHub Copilot is actually going up and saying, oh, you want this, it recognizes this as an array, maybe, but it pulls off the first pieces of the region as a property, and it actually pulls off the value. And what's interesting is about a couple of months ago when it did not handle the new syntax for pester. It was going with the old version. So I had to change my comment to give it a little nudge and say, okay, use the latest version of pester 5.0. Now, what's nice is I can come down and it picks off state, Texas, and if you can see along with the data, it's actually doing all this and makes my life easier. I don't have to focus on this kind of stuff. I have to make sure that it's coming back with the right information, but it really makes quick use of knocking out tests of these kinds. Now, the last piece I want to show is that it'll come up with and say, all right, I want to do, it'll now try to do the rest of the items in the array. I'll throw a little curveball and say, do -1. And notice it goes, almost got it right today. Of course, it doesn't want to help on the. It's a -1, it figures out that it's the last one, south, but once I've given it a couple of hints as I'm typing, now knows Delaware, 712, and 508. So I do a little range testing on my data that's coming back. So I kind of use my knowledge of Copilot, how it wants to work, so I can structure my code, structure my tests, so I can make my life really easy, so I can focus more on the essence of programming and not do this kind of work. So that's pretty much it. It's up on the PowerShell gallery. So if you want to do an install module on PowerShell AI, want to kick the tires and play around, great. And I'm on Twitter, so I'll be announcing Saturday. I'll be going on a deeper dive on this, what's going on in the OpenAI space, what's prompt engineering, all that kind of good stuff. You can do up on my meetup, or just reach out to me, find me, and I'll be happy to let you know. So thanks for giving me the time and talk today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You want to paste some of your links in the chat so people can just click on them?
Yep, will do. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Doug. Getting a bit of an echo. I don't know if everyone else is. I think we're good. Okay. Yeah.
Demetrius is here. If you want to get back to him.
Yeah.
I don't see Adam, so.
Our Winget PowerShell update.
You bet. So we've recently released a preview. I'm going to paste the link in chat. We've got an update on our PowerShell commandlets, and we've got a discussion that I'll also paste in chat to get some more feedback on that one. I think we also have Ryan Fu on the call, who's the engineer that's been working on it. Love to get your feedback on it. And one of the other things, we recently implemented a feature called package pinning. So you can kind of set the version and get Winget to ignore that when you run upgrade all. Pin is not an approved verb. So I would love to get some feedback on what you think a good way to kind of, present that using the PowerShell idioms. We're also looking at experimental features. We have those in Winget today. So to enable it in Winget in the CLI through winget.exe, you'd run settings and you'd add that experimental feature. But I think the right PowerShell idiom is to use the experimental features in PowerShell and then have that kind of do the appropriate wiring to enable that feature. And I would love to get any feedback on that. And if there's any questions, I'm here for a few more minutes to answer anything that you wanted to know.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate you coming to our call too.
Yeah.
Give those updates. We'll see if there are any questions that come in, but I think that reaches the end of our agenda. And so we have about 10 minutes for questions today. So feel free to once again add questions in the chat, use the raise hand feature, or add to the discussion. I did notice there was one question so far in our GitHub discussion. Ryan asked if we could get a brief update on working groups. Steve, do you want to take that one?
Oh yeah. So I don't know. I know I talked with Ryan before about some of this. So there's been some discussion. I'll just put it this way. There's some discussion across the working groups about making things more publicly available in terms of some of the conversation stuff. So I don't think we've closed on that. There's also been some ongoing discussion about getting like a mini con for just the working group members so we can discuss some of these items. So I know I'm probably a little bit behind on some of those messages, which I will try to review those later today or at least this week. But hopefully we'll get some of that squared away so that we can make some of the internal stuff more public. I also just would also encourage if anyone else is interested in participating in a working group, send me a message, or I think we still have an issue or discussion open for some of that. So you can find a way to reach out. And the only thing the only qualification really is like, what are some of the things that you've done in the past that would show that you should be one of those folks helping to make some of these community decisions. Otherwise, we're not necessarily rejecting anyone at this point. So anything on the OpenSSH front? So there was a question I just saw pop up from Gilbert. OpenSSH was covered very early on. I don't know if you were here for that. So I would recommend reviewing the YouTube video that gets posted hopefully in a week or two. Yeah, so there was an update on OpenSSH, and that was one of the first items we covered.
Any other questions for today? Give it another minute, and if not, we'll wrap things up. There's a question here for Demetrius. Any update on having Winget output JSON CSV?
Right now, the focus has been investing in the PowerShell commandlets. If we were to kind of stop doing that and switch over to exposing JSON through the Winget CLI, I think it would end up slowing down the work on native PowerShell support. But I don't plan on dropping it. It's something I think we do want to do. There's a lot of other people that are going to want to automate, and they're going to want JSON and potentially not use PowerShell. We also have COM APIs available, so you can natively interface with Winget via COM APIs.
Well, if there are no other questions, we can wrap up today's call just a few minutes early. Thanks so much to everyone for attending today and participating. I really loved especially the community demos we have, so definitely looking forward to seeing that more in the future. If you'd like to demo at next month's community call or at any community call in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Twitter is probably the easiest way, but also you can also comment on the discussion, and that's a really great way to get added to the agenda as well. Thanks everyone, and we will see you next month.